Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all-new Deep Cuts Live. I'm your host, Antoine Reid, and today we have with us a first-timer, which I've said a lot this year so far, but it's always fun to have someone new on the show that we haven't spoken to before. So today we're speaking to Enrique Sanchez from Global Premium Cigars. How are you?
Hello, Antoinette. How are you doing? How's everybody from Deep Cuts?
Good, good. I think, like I said, I've known about your brand for a while. I've worked at different magazines over the years, so it always comes up. You always have a very good reputation, which in this industry is very good to have and hard to maintain sometimes. So I've never heard anything bad about you. So we have a mutual friend and Steve Ross who kind of recommended you for this show, and like I said, I'm excited to have you on today.
Well, I'm excited to be on board as well, Antoinette. And you know what? I guess since you have not heard anything bad from me, is because you have not talked to my kids. Because otherwise, whenever they get in trouble, they're like, "Yeah, you're not a good father." Like, well, that's not how it works. But
so we always start off the show with a icebreaker question, and I feel like since we both know Steve Ross, he came up with a question a long time ago that I always thought was like a really strange question. But I think it'll be a great icebreaker question for you. So the Steve Ross icebreaker question for today is: if you could be any Vitola, what Vitola would you be?
You mean Vitola, the size?
Yes.
That was an easy one. That would be what is it? I can see it. There you go, Lancero.
Why would you choose Lancero?
I mean, I think I always said you can find the true soul in a blend when you find it in the Lancero. I think it's not only my favorite Vitola, and there's a reason for that. I mean, the proportion you get from the binders, long fillers versus the binder wrapper versus the long filler, it's amazing. I mean, it's really hard to make. It's really hard to have it perfect, especially when you have a great Lancero and you have a perfect draw. Easy as it should be, and even it's a semi-box press Lancero, and which is really tougher to make. So I think it's the closest point to perfection in Vitola, and of course, there's a reason why it's one of the last tests when I do when working on blend. Is I always blend in Toro size, because in Toro you can go up or down. You know, it's easy to maneuver, especially the space you have to put the other tobacco there. But once I think I got it right, I always make it short. And now make exactly the same blend, but the same proportion, but in the Lancero. Now, if the Lancero does not speak really high of it, and there's something I have to go back and do tweak my blends and to make it perfect. So for me, it always has been like those one of the last check when working a blend, and you know, so far I guess it has worked. So I keep doing what I've been doing.
Well, thank you for. I'm glad you had a response to that question, because I was like, I hope he has a response to this, like I said, super weird question that, but you seem to be ready for that question. So that must, like I said, come from knowing Steve Ross. Like I said, you were ready for that question, so that was a good thing.
Well, I'm glad I had it. You know, now we can say, you know, Enrique 1, Steve 0. So, you know,
definitely. Well, like I said, I've kind of followed you in the industry for a while. And what I want to do here is kind of introduce other people to you and your brand, since this is your first time on the show, and kind of get the story, because I feel like people connect to stories. And so I feel like hopefully after the hour that we spend together today, people, when they see 1502 cigars in the humidor, they'll feel more compelled to try it if they haven't already.
I appreciate it. We could try to do our best to help you out.
So how did you get into the industry? Because I felt like I listened to some of your other interviews, and I don't know if I was just like coming in at a certain part, but it seemed like you started off not a cigar person, but you kind of gradually became a cigar enthusiast, I would say.
Well, I mean, let me put it this way. Like you said, everything started was a nice story. So let me tell you a little bit about the story, how I get into cigars, even before I got to the industry.
Okay.
Actually, I was backpacking in Europe, I was actually in Madrid. I was in Antorcha waiting for a train to go to, I think it was Barcelona. I think it was Barcelona. It was in 1991, so it was summer. So I think it's July in the time. Yes, it was July. So I'm there, and I was smoking cigarettes. I was not proud of that one. That's one of the few regrets I have in my life. But I'm there waiting for the train and seeing all these gentlemen passing by with a cigar. So I'm like, you know what? I'm here in Europe backpacking. Let's give it a try. So I go to the train to the tabaquera, and outside of the train, the entrance of the train station, and ask for the cheapest cigar they have in the house. Now I was in school budget, so I probably was 15 years old at the time. So either buy a good cigar or have a meal next day. So I had to go. It's my budget. So I got a cheaper cigar and I got my packet of cigarettes and went back to the train station. I sit down there and I'm trying to light the cigar. I mean, it was horrible. The worst draw ever. I couldn't draw that cigar whatsoever. I tried so many times. I'm like, I don't know what to do. After a while, I was like, you know what? This is not for me. I threw it away and continued with my cigarettes. So I was a year after. I was in Managua, in Nicaragua, in my house, and one of my uncles, Uncle Jose Loy, walks in with a Romeo Julieta Churchill from Cuba. So I'm there, a little bit intrigued as well. I was like, hey, let's give it a second chance. So I asked him, can I have the cigar? And he said, sure. He said, you know how to light it. You know how to cut it. Huh? It's like, you know how to cut it. You have to cut the cigar. Oh. And of course, my mind was back to Spain. And like, maybe that was the issue that I had because I couldn't draw the cigar. So of course, I did feel embarrassed, and he told me how to light it, how to cut it. And after that, I started learning more about cigars. In Nicaragua in the early 90s, Nicaragua was booming with cigars. But being in Nicaragua, you cannot get any Nicaraguan tobacco at all because everything goes to free zones. So everything was for exportation. So I did have a lot of friends from Cuba, the island, and they were always bringing cigars from Cuba. So I was very introduced to the great Habanos in that time, in which they were phenomenal. I still remember the Cobijas Lanceros with a cellophane on it. That was early 90s. Because in the middle of the 90s, there was no more cellophane, and the quality went completely down. So, and then after that, I just started smoking cigar. I was the high school kid that goes to high school parties with a cigar in my pocket, and everybody told me to go out because that stinks. That's how it said in the time. 30-something years after, they come to my house to look for the cigars. So like, might be doing something. So everything started that way, and I got really enthusiastic about cigars. And then it got to the point in which, for some particular reason or another, I got to meet Don Nestor Plasencia. And it was actually Don Nestor Plasencia the one that pushed me to the industry. He probably saw something in me that nobody else saw it, and I even myself saw it at the time. And I remember he's trying to because I went there to meet with him was another business idea, now with cigars per se. So I'm presenting to him the idea. He listened to me very careful for like 20 minutes. And after that, he's like, Enrique, that's not going to go anywhere. I already have that. I'm like, 6 months of research and everything. And so I just persuade him a little bit. And he's like, Enrique, don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. And he comes back to me and says, like, why don't you make your own cigar? I'm like, no, I like to smoke everybody's cigar. It's like, well, you can still do that, but you had the passion for cigars. You had the passion for your country, And one of the things he told me was very important today. I think it's one of the things, or one of the advices we always taking. He told me you find a lot of people taking proud of our Nicaraguan product. People from everywhere in the world, United States, Cuba, Asia, Europe, anywhere. Everybody proud with the Nicaragua. But you don't see a Nicaraguan, a true Nicaraguan. As someone who's born and raised in Nicaragua, family been living there for over 200 years. But if you can combine the passion that you have for your country with the passion you have with cigars, there's something there that nobody can take away. It's a competitive advantage, you want to put it that way. So I'm like, okay, that's a very good sales pitch, but I'm still struggling a little bit. And then he very calmly, he asked me, Enrique, give me a chance. Then I'm like, what? So wait a second. I should be the one begging this gentleman for a chance. But he's so humble that he asked me for a chance. I'm like, oh, now I cannot say no. I mean, I have to come over here, learn about the process, because I didn't know anything about tobacco itself. I know which cigars that I like, which is the brands, and I recognize it, and talk a little bit about the history of the brands. But that is it. Blending and working in tobacco, it's completely another world. So, and the good thing is with Plasencia is from day one, they were really patient to start teaching me what to do, how to get started, what am I looking for. That's even before I start working in blends. And then, of course, when we get to the point in which I kind of knew a little more before, and we start working in the blends when 1502 Emerald, 1502 Ruby, 1502 Black Gold were born.
So I love the part of your story. There's a lot that you said that we can take apart, but the first part that really struck out to me was the education part, because you were talking about like when you were first getting into cigars, like basically you need to learn those basic things that I think as you get into the industry you kind of take for granted, because you think that's simple, like how to light a cigar, like how to cut a cigar, and those are things that you don't naturally know until someone tells you. So like have you just on the education part, like have you seen like since you came into it not knowing it, like how have you kind of passed on that education to other people to kind of bring them into like the fold? Because I'm sure that might have been like a major pain point for a lot of people. It's like they may not have had a great experience either because they didn't know how to cut it or they didn't know how to light it properly. And like I said, there's things that the longer you're in this industry, you kind of take for advantage, or you just don't think about, you don't think it's that important, but it's super important to get, if you're a beginner, to feel comfortable lighting, cutting, and just getting into the whole smoking process.
You're absolutely right, Antoine. I mean, there's many things in which you should do or you should not do with cigars. I mean, a lot of things is allowed for you to try and error. For example, are you going to use a straight cut? Are you going to use a bit cut? Are you going to use a punch? That's something. The only way to find out which one do you like is trying them. In my case, I do prefer a straight cut. For me, it's what I have been experienced all the time. That doesn't mean I do not use big cut sometimes or punch sometimes if I need it. So, but that's something that I had experienced myself. How you light the cigar. In my case, in which since I was taught and like the way I do it, I light my cigars first and then I cut it. And there's a reason for that. Because I mean, everybody's like, "What?" And sometimes I in a lounge and I am doing that, and people are like, "Well, sir, excuse me, I think you forgot to cut a cigar." And they didn't know that I am in the industry. And I'm like, well, yes, actually I did not forget and did it on purpose. Like, why? So, well, let me explain why. When you cut a cigar and you light a cigar, there's always some smoke that escapes for the top of the cigar. That's called the chimney effect. I mean, if you light it here and this is open, it's some smoke that will escape from here. Sometimes even stay in between it. So when you do your first puff, it will influence that blend that we will have work on it. Now, if you are very patient and you're indoors with not a lot of winds or nothing like that, and you can light your cigar very carefully and make sure it's well lit, and then you do the cut, the first draw you're going to take, it's going to be the best experience that you're going to get for that blend. And that's how we create it to be. So there's a reason for that. So that's something people are like, oh, well, let me try it. And I see a few more people now trying that way. But it's not a right or wrong answer. Now, there's a few in which they're wrong. And for example, I've seen it. Everybody started at some point, and you're in a lounge and you see somebody new walking in, and he's like trying to figure it out, and he's embarrassed to ask the question, and suddenly he goes to the humidor, he grabs the cigar he should not be grabbing, and then he sits down and he's looking around, and he thought like, oh, well, at least I'm gonna cut it, and he does cut it and put it the way around. I'm like, no, that's not the right way to do it. So that's the wrong way. But many others, it's allowed try and error, and there's no way you can say, I don't like this kind of cut, or I don't like this kind of blend, especially if you want to go to more details in blends. Is the only way to find out is for you to try it. It's try and error.
And another part of the story, which I'm going to try that now that you've mentioned it, I look forward to trying that this weekend. That method of lighting it and then cutting it, just to see what the experience is. When you talked about the influence of Nestor on your career and how he was humble, like how he was asking you to take a chance on him basically. And when, usually you would think it would be like the other way around, like you would have to, I've been thinking a lot about humbleness in this industry because there are sometimes, I don't know what it is, but certain people kind of lose touch with that humbleness, and it just happens, and it happens in every industry. It's not, it's going to happen in this industry as well. But I found like people like Nestor and Hendrik Kellner Sr., they stay humble throughout, Ernesto Perez Carrillo. They stay humble and they always say, "Oh no, I'm still learning." And to me, that's like a great mentality to have, because it's almost like you're positioning yourself to be able to learn more and to take on new experiences. Whereas if you're the other way around and you think that you've made it, then it's like you're going to close yourself off to so many new things. So what else did you kind of learn from working so closely with him in that kind of mentor-mentee relationship?
It's a lot of learning, because one of the things Arendo Ernesto Plasencia told me from the beginning is like, Enrique, never stop learning. The day you say I've learned everything is the day you're ready to die. So it doesn't matter. Everything changes. Raw materials changes. Crop changes. The weather changes. The market changes. There's many aspects in which varieties in which at the same time they're moving parts. So if you think that those moving parts will stay still for your entire life and everything, it's like a magic wand and appears, that is lying to yourself, and that's not my belief, the way to do it. And I have the honor for meeting a lot of people in which they have told me many advices. Like, for example, Don Kiki with Don Kiki Cigars. One of the advice he told me is like, Enrique, when I was getting started and everything, I was starting with my brand, my three brands, and he's like, Enrique, whatever you do, always stay, I said, unique. Be yourself. Don't try to copy or follow somebody else's step, because if people will understand that, and people will never follow you. But if you always be sincere, you always be honest to yourself, and you be true to yourself, then people, either they're going to love you or they're going to hate you, but they're going to, whatever it is, you always being honest. And the most important part is being honest to yourself in that aspect. And we try to do that. I mean, there's a lot of people like, so you're trying to be like this brand? They're like, no, I'm not trying to be like anybody else. I'm being me. This is me. This is the way I speak. That's the way I think. This is my values. This is what we create. I'm not trying to copy anybody. And that's for us. It has been one of the values behind GPC or Global Premium Cigars. It has to be that we are something different, something unique.
And I always say that even in the media realm, because you see, when people want to become like a cigar media person, it's like they gravitate towards, I'm going to post press releases when they come out. I'm going to be the first one to get those posted, and then I'm going to do a cigar review, and that's it. And I'm always like, we need new people, just like we need new people in the manufacturing side and in the retail side of the industry. But I think a lot of people kind of lose out that idea too of be yourself and be something unique. Like, I know that I don't think people should like listen to my opinion when it comes to like what cigars you should smoke or whatever. So I don't do reviews, but I know I'm missing out on certain parts of the market because I don't do that. But I think it's unique like that. And I'm sure that you're in the same position where, somebody might point to another brand over here and say, they're doing this, you should be doing that too. And you kind of have to tell them, yeah, it's a nice idea, but that's not like my thing. Like, I need to stick to this.
Yeah, and you hear it all the time. For example, when the 60 ring gauge started getting really popular in the market, I came out with Lanceros. But it's like, are you nuts? You're not reading the signs? The market's going that way. It's like, I don't care about the market, where the market is going. I do care how I come out with something in the market, and hopefully people get to enjoy it. So, and always been known to be a little bit more, not only different, but sometimes going the opposite where the market is going. Because I don't like to be following. I like to normally lead. That's always been me since I was a little kid. So, and I always try to come out with the creativity, the innovation to be able to lead things as well. And that's part of what I can come out and bring to the table, to the industry. So something different, something completely. When people try our cigars, before, like, so it tastes more like this brand or that brand, and like, no. So what it tastes like? Completely something different you never tried before. And they're like, oh, okay, but if you like, don't try to push me that way, because I'm not gonna give you a brain because I did not create the brain thinking of something else they already created. I created something was my innovation, was my I say that was my I was thinking Spanish and translate English. This is always a little bit confusing in that aspect, but it's something that inspired me to create, not to copy. And that's, for me, is one of the key things. Be always true to yourself. Whatever you create, it has to be something unique, something that will bring something different to the world, something has never been explored or discovered. And then when you find it, like, ta-da! There it is.
In one of your interviews that I was watching today, you talked about how you don't chase flavors when you're creating a blend. You instead you pursue the concept. So could you tell people like what that means? Because I think that even that is a different approach in the industry, because you think, there's some people in the industry that say, oh, I know I need this in my portfolio, or this taste, or this flavor profile, or maybe I'm going to use this wrapper. So what does that mean to chase a concept rather than chasing the flavor?
Well, I mean, every blender is different in this world. I mean, there's not a right or wrong answer. It's something that once you find your path and you experience many other things, it's good to follow. If they give you good results, keep doing what you're doing. If it doesn't, make sure to change. That's a very utilitarian way of thinking. But in the artistic part of it, and I would say that there are two types of blenders in this industry. You got the corporate blenders, in which when they blend, normally they're very knowledgeable people. I mean, even for the seed, from how the land is prepared, they study very well, most likely even agriculture or botanic. They know the field very well. But when they blend for a market. So, if they're going to blend for a cigar from Mexico, everybody knows that Mexicans love their spice. So they're going to make sure that the cigar has a spice to it, because, they're thinking about the market and they direct all the guns to there. Then you have and I do consider myself in that aspect more the artistic blender. In my case, there's something very particular. When I blend, I start with a concept, something that inspired me to look for something in which I had never seen before, I never tried, I never smelled it. It's there to be discovered, but no one has found it yet. So my job is to find it. And I'll put you an example for 1502 Nicaragua. It's always a great example. It was the fourth blend that I created. And my inspiration to that blend is when my wife told me she was pregnant for Enrique Fernando, my youngest one, Enrique Fernando III, put it that way. So, of course, after getting up from the floor and after I fell, with a shock, and I'm like, okay, I would love to do a blend, but wait a second. I'm from Nicaragua, born and raised in Nicaragua. My wife's born and raised in Nicaragua as well. We live in Miami, and my kid was going to be born, and he was born here in Miami. So I wanted to create a puro Nicaragüense, 100% Nicaragua, so my kid has never forget his roots. Mm-hmm. But wait a second, a puro Nicaragüense, remember in Nicaragua we have 4 different regions, Jalapa, Condeste, y Leometepe. So, there's a lot, where are we going to go there? So I'm like, okay, well, I'd like to have the more representation of Nicaragua itself. So it has to be all 4 regions, or the main region has to be in the blend. But the other important part of it is none of the regions should stand out. It should be Nicaragua's one. And that was my concept when I started working in this blend. So, and then people ask me flavors. Flavors, normally, they find me in the end. I'm never chasing for flavors. I start with a concept for me in my head. It's like composing a symphony. You can inspire or something that brings you something greater in life, and your head, you start putting all the instruments together. and you find the rhythm, you start finding the message, and everything is in your head. And then you write down, or you can start, putting instruments together and see how it goes. So a lot of trial and error. So now, going back and saying, no, I don't like this one, I like this one. But everything starts here in my case. Remember, it's something very important. I'm the first one in my family that is starting this industry. It's not like my grandfather was in the cigar industry, my father was in the cigar industry. So everybody had give me all the knowledge. I had to start from scratch and learn everything that I can as I go. So this is how I have learned to do things. And for me, it's very important. I've been doing that for 12 years now. Actually, 2 years before, because I was learning and blending for the three main blends, original blends in the beginning. So, but that is how my process works. So it's something different, something unique.
So in the beginning, what did you find was most important for you to learn to kind of really start getting into the industry? Because I'm sure, because for some people it's blending, for some people it's the business side. So what for you did you see that you like, oh, this is like going to be the most important thing I need to really focus on in order to kind of make this thing work?
The cigars. I mean, it's there's many ways you say, people are like, oh no, the market has to be perfect. The market has to be, with all the tools and everything. All those things are irrelevant if the cigar doesn't speak by itself. You can fix everything going that way, but when you have a great blend, or doing backwards, most likely it will never succeed. And having a great blend is two things in which I always say that they have to find a way how to combine in the aspect. One, you have to have the talent. You have to know what you're looking for, and to be able to do that, you have to learn, and you have to be very humble to say, you know what, I don't know anything. Please teach me, or start listening to, and find ways how to get more knowledge and start experiencing. And that takes time, of course, but it's something you have to do it. It's the talent to be able to do it. And the other part of it is the passion. You have to have the passion. When those two things aligns in anything in life, in passion and talent put together, is when magic appears. If one is missing, most likely you're not going to get there.
When you were talking about the concept, what struck me about that part of the process is also knowing the story or having context behind the blend. So like anyone could create a cigar blend, just mix up different tobaccos together and pray that it all kind of meshes well together. But the whole idea of having a story that you can tell. So like you being able to tell that story about how your the coming birth of your son helped inspire that brought together that concept. That's a story that you can tell, that you can obviously, as if a retailer says like, what's the big deal about this cigar? You have a bigger story to tell than just wrapper, binder, filler and MSRP. Do you think being in the industry as long as you have, do you think the story continues to be an important selling point, or do you think something else is what makes the cigar sell?
Well, it's I think it's a combination of everything. I mean, it's always easy to sell something when you have a good story. That's anything in life. I mean, even if you're trying to find the right partner for your life, a story will definitely help you a lot, or definitely will not help you a lot. But it's having the story is very important. But besides the story, a true story has to be fundamental. It's not about telling just a story. Those things has to be fact, has to be true. I cannot come out with a story that, yes, because in Nicaragua, for example, and somebody can ask me, when was Nicaragua rediscovered? I don't know. When Nicaragua independence? When was the first Civil War? Who was the first president? I don't know. So what is it? You talk about Nicaragua, and the only thing you use is Nicaraguan T-shirt. That's not being a Nicaragua. I mean, a true Nicaraguan who definitely knows the culture, will definitely tell you what's the national food in Nicaragua, what's the national bird, all those things. It's common knowledge. Same here in the United States. in civics, you have to go learn all that. Can I come here expect just because I put the United States flag? It's like, now I have the story because I'm from the United States. You have to learn all those things, and to be able to do that, you not only have to learn it, but you have to live it, as you say. So the story now is not only words putting together in a nice way for people to understand it or can repeat it easier. It has a meaning in that one. When in my case, part of my story and that's part of the slogan. It's orgullosamente nicaragüense, proudly Nicaragua. Like I said, my family been living in Nicaragua for over 200 years, and in most of that history books of Nicaragua, either you're gonna find a relative of mine or they wrote the book. Mm-hmm. So it cannot be more Nicaraguan than that one. So for me, that's part of it. And with all the team that I work with, I tell them, you're not selling a cigar. You're creating memories. And that is the key part of it. Whoever thinks they're still selling cigars in this industry, most likely they're going to be out of business very soon. This is a memory. And that memory has to go around Nicaragua, because that's when everything, in my opinion, of my love for my country and the industry, of course, is when everything is happening now. And that is true story.
I love that. The idea of going deeper into the story, though, because like you said, there's companies out there that could say this, this cigar represents this or that country. And if you ask them like the history of, well, what's the history of this? What's the history of that? How did that come about? They might struggle to tell you that. So it's like, is it really authentically that, or is it just like influence? Like, like when you buy juice in a grocery store, and you turn to the back and it says like 100% juice, or is it 10% juice and the rest of it's just water? You have to. I think it does make a big difference, and so I think I love that. Like I said, that idea, especially me, because I'm like all into history, and I just know that it's really hard to kind of, like you said, really know all the history of anything. So it seems like you've gone a step further to really make sure that you're living up to that mantra of proudly Nicaraguan. Like, what does that mean? What that means, knowing the history and being able to tell you those things and answer those questions.
Yes, very much. And live the experience that Nicaragua have to offer. Then you understand a lot more what we are about, at least in my company and my family. So for us, it's one of the key things. It's get you back to those beautiful roots and that we have in our blood, in which we feel very proud of it.
So when you finally learn what you need to learn to create this brand, I always like to ask people this question, but where did the name for your company come from? Because your company name is Global Premium Cigars. So why did you settle on that name? And were there any other names that came close that you kind of like playing around with that you said, no, I'm going to go in this other direction? So in some multiverse somewhere, is the company a completely different name that you were thinking about going towards, that you just decided to settle on Global Premium Cigars?
Well, it's a reason why the name is Global Premium Cigars, or GPC, as we like to call it sometimes, a little bit shorter. It's that I put the vision of the company in the name. We a little company from Nicaragua, and the idea is to be everywhere in the world, being globally. But of course, we understand that we're not going to be in each corner. Always choosing wisely with the right partners where we're going to be working is very important. But that was the idea: is to put my vision of the company, my vision as entrepreneurship of a cigar guy in this industry, be put in the name Global Premium Cigars. That was 12 years ago, because we're in the 12 years. I remember 12 years ago, it was 2012. That's when the Maya calendar is supposed to be ending. So I remember that time I was like, well, everything should be in. I got started, and it was GPC. So and that was the idea, is to put that reminder that everybody that see the brands, even myself and the people that work together, is that is there for a reason. And to now we do have present, not as past present, but we do have present in all continents in the world except Australia and Antarctica. We learned that penguins do not like to smoke cigars yet, but we're working on that. But Asia, Africa, Europe, in America, all those countries, we do have presence, and we are growing the present, and we find ways how to get more, share our experience, our memories to different corners of the globe.
So you have Global Premium Cigars, or GPC, and then you have 1502 Cigars. So going off of what you have been speaking about in this podcast so far, what was your concept for 1502? Like, how did that whole brand kind of get created?
Well, it's interesting you ask that question, because it's what they say, you have the company name, and then you have the different brands of products. So we do have two brands, two different ones. We call Cachitos, the little short one. I believe here you guys call it dog walkers. More in the north, more here in Florida, I call it my summer cigars, because when it's almost 100% 100 degree and 100% humidity, after 30, 40 minutes smoking a cigar, you don't want to be outside. So it's
Right.
for me, it's in Latin America, especially Nicaragua, when you talk with friends, like, yeah, dame un cachito. It's like, give me a short one, and that's where the name comes from, cachito. And then 1502 Cigars, we have I think seven different brands under 1502 Cigars. So what we did in 1502 Cigars, we separate them in a portfolio, like in Scotch, for example. When you have single malt, you got rare Scotch, and then you have a single malt Scotch. So it's a little more easy to understand it that way. So you had a 1502 Emerald, 1502 Ruby, 1502 Black Gold. They're part of the blended selection. Why? Because 80-something% is Nicaraguan tobacco. Then you had a Puro selection, in which 1502 Nicaragua, 1502 Blue Sapphire, in which they're 100% Nicaragua. And the interesting part, when you put them together, it's just, the bang, one is white and the other is blue. You put together our Nicaraguan flag, in which blue, white, and blue. So there's a reason for that, of course. And then, of course, we got the Aniversario selection, that we only have one there, but the comment later on, in which we release it with our 10th anniversary. And then, of course, we got our masterpiece, in which is the 1502 XO, in which is, I would say, a Rolls Royce in the line. Nothing, not even compared to it in any other cigar in the world. So it's different part of it. But the most important thing is why 1502, and that's when people are like, well, you can see it in many marketing ideas why the name came from. And to be honest, it did not start the name because of the marketing part of it, and that's very clear. I wanted something to scream Nicaragua, and what better than the year that everything got restarted in Nicaragua.
Okay.
Everybody in Nicaragua, or at least the Nicaraguense, we know the story. And for Christopher Columbus and his fourth last trip to America, he was sailing in the Caribbean Sea, passed by Honduras, and that's why the name Honduras comes from, because in his diary he put Las Aguas Honduradas, shaky waters, and that's why the name Honduras came from. So, and he was about to sink, and he saw this piece of land, and he tried to get the closest he came to the piece of land. As soon as he got there, the sun comes out, sunshine. And he named this piece of land Cabo Gracias a Dios, thank God Key. And it was in the year 1502, even before Nicaragua was named Nicaragua. It was the first time my country was a point of reference for the new world to discover. So it's something that, let's go back to our root, Nicaragua. Something that screamed Nicaragua, and one better that year that everything got restarted. And that's why it's one of the key things. Now, in the marketing point of view, and they later on find out about that one. It was, oh, you're a genius. And I don't know about genius. I got lucky in that one. Is that 1502 you can say in Spanish, English, in German, in Mandarin, whatever you want to be, always going to be 1502. There's no different in that aspect. So it's easy to remember in that and with that one.
So we're going to talk about 1502 cigars, but you mentioned like the smaller cigars, because I've been getting really interested in the smaller cigars, because I know it was like a couple years ago, like a bunch of companies started to make, a lot of smaller cigars, but I don't know if they ever caught on in the US as they maybe in like other places. So what kind of success do you have with the smaller cigar market? Because I like them, because like, as you said, like if you're either short on time, or if it's boiling outside, or if it's super cold outside and you just want that cigar experience, like you can get like a lot. It's packed with flavor, because it's like just like a little short shot of that cigar. I just think it's a nice, fun way to kind of try out different blends without, going the Robusto or Toro route. So what success do you have with these smaller cigars?
Well, it's a full success, not only in the United States, in Europe, and Asia, and everywhere. I mean, it definitely it's a hit from the beginning. And the interesting part of it is you do mention it very well. There's many companies a few years ago that come out with the small ones.
Mm-hmm.
I know the reason for that. You know why they start doing that?
No.
Because what happens when you do a Toro or use a Torpedo or a Churchill, you always have leftovers.
Sure.
So what they try to do, well, let's make something smaller, and we use the leftovers to put it there so we can have better profits in the company. In my case, it was quite different because, first of all, Cachito is not made by Plasencia, it's made by Barrera Cigars, so it's completely another company, and the tobacco is completely different. And everything is long filler, no short filler whatsoever. Remember, Global Premium Cigars, the company, always keep in mind, everything that we do, it has to be premium. To be able to be premium, it has to have long fillers. And of course, it has to be premium tobacco. So it's not leftovers there. I create the blend specific for that size. And I always have the issue that, I only have 30, 40 minutes. If I grab a Robusto, I'm going to leave at least one third out. And I really hate that. And I'm like, nah. So I create this one to be perfect for the time. But not only the time frame, the blend has to be perfect as well. And I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I think, in Cigar Journal, it came out with a 91, I think, rating. Mm-hmm. And who was 92? Padron 69. And who was 93? Opus for Fuente. And I'm like, wait a second. You put me in the same spot with all the high-end cigars compared to that Macachito, and that time I think was 550 MSIP. And we got just about the same rating.
Wow.
So that tells you a lot. I was laughing. I'm sure that my colleagues were not that happy about it. But that's what we present to it. It's something quality, perfect, but it has to be specific for that size. And we don't make it, and we're not planning to make it any other size. I did came out with the Lancero because, of course, I had to do with the Lancero. But besides that, it's a Cachito, something small, something perfect for that specific time.
Switching over to the 1502 line, what was it like creating that first blend for that cigar line? Like, was it because you were new to the industry? I would take it at that time. I'm sure now it's a completely different experience, but what do you remember about trying to create that first 1502 blend, and when it finally hit the market and you had to kind of, let go and hope for the best?
Yeah. Well, we're still hoping for the best too. So, well, it's in the beginning. I was very clear with Plasencia. Like, I'm not going to create one blend because I like variety. I like to enjoy different cigars in different time of the day or different days. It all depends. And just having one blend is going to get boring at a point. I mean, it's like having a filet mignon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for months or years. Sooner or later, that filet mignon is not going to taste very well anymore. So it's good to educate and change your palate. So I want to create 3 different blends. So, and that's when I came out with 1502 Emerald, 1502 Ruby, and 1502 Black Gold. Why? It's very simple. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 3 different cigars, 3 different strains, and 3 different characteristics for one or the other. It's not like we change the wrapper and, there it goes. There goes a new cigar. We start that from scratch to create a specific experience that I wanted to come out with in each time or this part of the day. So it was something completely unique. And of course, like you said, then you hope that the market understands it and fall in love with it. I think after 12 years being in the industry with those 3 blends, so far we're doing very well. So I like to believe that we did something right.
So now fast forward from that release to your latest release. What's the last thing that you released, and what was that experience like? Since you've had 12 years of experience, do you still have performance anxiety whenever they get ready to go out on stage? Do you still have that anxiety that maybe comes with being a new brand, like, oh, I hope this is well received, and I hope we did the right thing, and all that kind of stuff. What was the last, tell us about this latest release, and like I said, an experience around that.
Well, it's something very funny because when we get started, I remember we went to IPCPR in that time, was in Orlando. It was my first trade show, 2012. And I'm there, I'm very excited going there for the first time. Never been at a trade show, never been in the cigar industry. And like, what to do, I have no idea. So before I left, I told my wife, like, well, honey, you know what? If this doesn't work, at least I'm going to have a loud cigar to smoke. And my wife is like, you better make it work. So 12 years after, I do feel with the same idea. And I tell my wife, well, if this blend doesn't work, at least I love it. I'm going to smoke it all my life. So there's no worry whatsoever. And the last creation that we did was 52 Aniversario 10 for our 10th anniversary. And actually, it's not made by Plasencia. That is made by AJ Fernandez.
Oh, okay.
It was a completely different experience because working with Plasencia, they had their own way of doing things. The system, how they grow tobacco, how they harvest, how they go through the process of fermentation, storage, and all. And it's completely different how Barrera does it, and it's completely different how AJ Fernandez does it. So my way to be working with different factories is like playing with different groups, music groups. Everybody had their own tempo, or everybody has their own way. But be able to work with them together and then create magic with each of them is something that is part of my passion to be looking for that. And for me, it's very exciting. So it was completely something completely different. First time I did work with AJ Fernandez, was Adele. It was a great friend of mine, but we never have worked together. To be able to come out together and say, what are we looking for? What we need? And try to explain to him, because without even talking about flavors profile, it's let me try this tobacco, let me try that tobacco, and start putting the blend in my head. It's helping me out. It's like, so it's completely different what Plasencia does. And Plasencia, most likely, they gave me more free range in that aspect. So it's always different in that one. But from day one, when we create a blend, and I sent it to a few of my friends for they say, what do you think? We knew there was going to be a hit from day one. I mean, there was no doubt. I mean, even today, everybody, anniversario. It has been something completely unique. And one of the things that 12 years ago when we get started was 52 Emerald, 52 Ruby, 52 Black Gold. We used tobacco, and those three blends, we used tobacco for 3 different countries. You got Mexico, you got Ecuador, and you got Nicaragua. 52 Aniversario 10, 10 years after, we put all those 3 countries together in one. So it was completely uniqueness.
You talked about working with AJ Fernandez, Plasencia. Do you have like anyone else out there that you haven't worked with yet that you're kind of like kicking around in the back of your head, like, I wonder what we could come up with together?
I cannot tell you more about it, but there's other companies, and we have been having some projects, but hopefully we get to see some of them later on.
Okay, good teaser. So you kind of told us about like the history of 1502 and Global Premium Cigars and your time in the industry. Where do you want to see this go? So if you and I are talking 5 years from now, what do you want to be able to say that you accomplished?
Interesting. Let me put it this way. When we released the 52 Aniversario 10, it was for our GPC 10 years. And it was the big 10 with the GPC logo in the center. And underneath, we put 10 years, and we only getting started. We're here to put this industry to the next level. Actually, and I always tell my teams, it's to redefine the industry itself. We're not here just to sell another cigar. That's let that job for some other companies. We're here to make changes, and we have done big changes with the little resources that we have. We have done great changes in that aspect, but this is only the scratching the surface yet. There's a lot more to come around it, and I cannot tell you much about it, but hopefully more sooner than later. this you're gonna see, or you're gonna be like, wait a second, Enrique told me. Oh, now I understand the way he was thinking, how things were coming there. When I started this company to leave a legacy behind. I had 3 kids, and hopefully at least one of them will carry on was what I created. It was not a flip company in which I'm going to create a brand. I'm going to smoke a cigar, have fun, a great time. Then I will sell it, and go back to Nicaragua or the Caribbean and have a great time. Now I'm here for the long term. I have taken the rough path, but I have taken the most secure path, or the most important path, in which it's always be true, always be, and consistency, quality, always focus in those things.
Awesome. So as we round up this part of our interview together, I always like to close out with the same 2 questions for every guest. The first of those questions is, do you have a philosophy that you live by?
Yes. Live your life like it's the last day of your life. Be true to yourself. There's no doubt. And the most important part of it, enjoy it. Enjoy it, because sooner or later, we're all going to be gone. What we leave behind is what it counts. And you cannot live happiness if you never had happiness. And you have to learn that every day. Life is tough. We all have issues. We all have bills to pay, family to take care of it, and things to do, obligations. But that doesn't mean you cannot be happy about it.
And the final question for this part of the interview is, I want you to complete this sentence. Enrique Sanchez is...
Should I continue with the phrase?
Yes.
Well, Enrique Sanchez is a true Nicaraguan with very strong values. It's values in which has been carried with him in most of his life, and he's looking to leave those values, those huellas, as a way, footprints for the next generations to do things the right way too. It's not about getting there; it's how you get there. It's, for me, the most important things.
Awesome. For those people who are not watching this video, can you tell people like what social media they need to follow and what websites to visit to get more information on you and your company?
Well, first of all, they should be watching the video. I mean,
I know, exactly.
But everything is well standardized. I mean, you can go to Global Premium Cigars and Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, our website is Global Premium Cigars. So everything is well standardized in that aspect. And from there, you can always recommend to us to follow, so you know what's new, what's going on, where we are, what are we doing, so you could keep in touch. Or most important part, when you try a cigar, post the pictures or videos and tag us so we can respond and integrate with you guys, and which that's part of the most important part of it. It's always been a gentleman habit for over 500 years smoking cigars. Good thing now we do enjoy it with the ladies, but social media has done something great. It has put us together, and there's one roof, and doesn't matter where you are, what time it is, and everything. You can have a conversation with friends, with consumers, with relatives, and all that. So let's take advantage of that.
Awesome. I want to thank you for coming on today. And we have a couple more things that we're going to film when this video ends. So you can sit tight. But for those of you watching out there, if this is your first time watching Deep Cuts or listening to it, make sure you hit the like or subscribe button wherever you are. Follow on Instagram and TikTok and all those other social media sites. And like I said, I want to thank Enrique for coming on for the first time. And hopefully it won't be the last time. I think we had a good time. So I look forward to having you back on again to talk more about your brand now that we got all the kind of getting to know you stuff out of the way. It'll be a completely different show next go around. But I want to thank you for coming on. And for those of you watching, if you're not having a great day, make it a great